I'd like to call the order of the Common Council meeting for January 25th, 2022 at 6:15 p.m. Attendance roll call.
Alderperson Madden.
Here.
Kubaki.
Here.
Engelhardt.
Here.
Kapusta is absent. Terrence.
Here.
Hamel.
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
We have a quorum present.
Thank you. Statement of public notice.
The meeting was noticed in accordance with the open meeting law.
Thank you. Public comment. This is an opportunity to speak about anything on the agenda. This is not the public hearing. That'll be a separate issue or a separate item following this. Does anyone care to speak at public comment? Going once, twice. All right. Communications from the mayor's office. If you aren't aware, our deputy clerk, Jill Belensky, will be retiring. Her last day of work is Monday. If you have a chance, stop in, say hi or goodbye to her, wish her luck. She's surely going to be missed. She has such a depth of knowledge and history for this community. It's amazing how, during agenda meetings and everything else, we're talking about stuff and she'll pull out something from the back of her head of, oh yeah, back in 1989 we did it because of this. And so I wish her the best of luck in her retirement, but she will be missed. Moving on to public hearing. Public hearing to consider the petition of Daniel Scardino to rezone property located at W160 South 6369 through 6381 Commerce Drive, tax key numbers 2169.993.013 from BP1 Business and Office Park Support District and BP3 Business Park District to PD Plan Development District based on BP3 Business Park District for the purpose of allowing a future land division.
Thank you, Mayor. So that was a lot of BPs out there, right? So I'll try to summarize it so it makes a little more sense. The biggest thing to start with, it's a plan development zoning request, and the idea of plan developments is to have flexibility within the zoning. The situation here, the plan development is going to be based upon the BP3, which is what the bulk of the parcel is zoned currently. Really, the only waiver that's being asked about or flexibility within the code is an open space requirement. So in our current code, when you look at all of our traditional B business commercial districts, so B1 through B4, which are all the businesses you see basically anywhere other than some of the ones in the Merlin corridor, as well as if you look at our M1 or M2, so our light industrial and our general industrial. So all of our industrial parks and such. All of those districts do not currently have an open space requirement listed in the zoning ordinance. The open space requirement that's listed is if there'd somehow be a dwelling unit in those zoning ordinances, in those zoning districts, which is not common. Open space is indirectly handled through stormwater ponds, landscaping, setbacks, offsets. So there's always inherently open spaces regardless whether there's a set number or not. So the city kind of historically has had that be a stance is how we've looked at open space on commercial properties. When the BP districts were created, when the Moreland Corridor was developed, administration and staff at that time did propose set open space numbers. So the only districts in our city that have set open space for commercial or industrial are those BP districts. And what we realized in a scenario here, the Gingerbread House, even though they're not part of the technical rezoning, has a need for expansion and parking. If you've been there, you've seen that. It's a very successful business. And just west of them is a lot that's part of the rezoning. And that lot to the west of them, which is currently a wooded area, is actually part of the lot which is south of Gingerbread House, which currently houses a couple different users, including like the Halos baseball facility, to kind of give you perspective. So their property right now, they have this extra land that's next to Gingerbread House, and they were a willing participant to work with Gingerbread House to try to sell them some land to help with their parking needs and such. But it was determined about this open space, and we found out that existing lot is basically where it needs to be with open space right now, so they can't sell any land to Gingerbread House, even though it's a big chunk of unusable commercial land. So as such, they're proposing this PD zoning district. What they're basically stating is instead of there being 33% of the lot as open space, which is current, they're asking to have 20% of the lot as open space. So still committing to keeping open space. Visually will look no different than what's there today. They're basically saying, let us just keep our lot as it is and kind of square it off. And that little finger that sticks up next to Gingerbread House, let's let them have that land or sell that land, they're working out their deal there without having the existing open space become an issue to prohibit it. This is obviously one of our kind of, commercial quarters that still has some space to be developed in it. And, from an economic development standpoint of trying to encourage development, as a planner, I believe the last thing we want to do is imply a stricter open space requirement here than we do in other areas. So I definitely think the PD request is appropriate, kind of given the nature of where it is and what it is. It's a pretty unique situation out there.
Any questions for Adam before the public hearing?
So basically, you're going to go from 33 to 20%, is that right?
Correct.
And everything else will still stay the same for like parking requirements and stuff, because if you look at that area, there's already problems with parking. I mean, even Halo going in there, there's not many spaces in front of there, and we granted that. So if it's true that they're going to add more parking, it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, from the discussions we've had, that's the main goal of Gingerbread House property, is to acquire it so that they can help their customer parking needs.
Is this tied to the transfer of ownership? Like, is that a thing where you can approve it contingent upon it being sold, knowing that the purpose is something that we are for?
Yeah, Jeff, I guess could you say that it's,
You do conditional zoning.
that's more of a legal question. I've always heard differing opinions on conditional zoning like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look at that. Off the top of my head, I think you could do it, but I don't want to give an answer that.
One thing we could maybe do, we could consider, and I think this isn't conditional zoning, we could, when we do rezoning ordinance, it's very common, and it's not in our current ordinance that's being proposed tonight, but we could add in there, amend it to state that the rezoning is conditional upon the land split, the CSM happening. That's very common for subdivisions. In fact, they always state the zoning isn't kick in until the land division happens. We could possibly do that here because we do that all the time. And as part of the CSM, the land split would be forthcoming if this gets approved. Staff was already listing a condition of the lots being combined, because we don't think this lot sitting on its own doesn't seem like as good of a candidate. It makes sense to be joined next door. So that was already something that we would be asking for as part of a CSM, which is going to come in the future. So, Jeff, I mean,
That
you think
makes a little bit more sense.
I think we could do that. So it's
Right.
You're kind of indirectly doing it with two steps, but two steps we normally do anyway. So
Right, that makes a lot more sense.
And if we were to do that, you would amend the ordinance tonight for the first reading to include that it's conditional upon approval of a certified survey map to split the land.
Now, is there houses west of this?
So Gingerbread House is on the corner, then there's this lot in question, then there's the water tower property, and then there would be homes.
Okay, so the
water tower's
easement to the water tower is not included in
Yeah,
there?
the water tower stays as it
And
is
then
today.
there's residential property next to that?
Next to the water tower, there is, yes.
Now, do we have to notify them or anything, or what?
If they were within 300 feet of this boundary, they would have been notified as part of this.
Okay.
But there is still excuse me, I'm looking at the map here. I think the water tower lots, at least, it looks like 150 feet, so it's still a pretty significant buffer already. That will definitely keep anything from this property separate from where those homes would be. And obviously, when the Gingerbread House or whomever would come in for a parking lot, as far as any screening concerns and whatnot, that will all be dealt with as part of a future BSO approval.
Well, and they seem to be a good neighbor, but, I don't live next to them, so I can't tell you that.
Yeah, it's a pretty significant buffer, in my opinion, between the two.
Any other questions? All right. At this point, anyone who would like to be heard on this, either for or against, please come forward, state your name and address. Form a single file line. All right. At this point, I'll declare this public hearing closed. Thank you. Moving on, consent agenda. Approval of the common council minutes for January 11th, 2022. An acquisition contract and authorization signatures for budget approval expenditures over $50,000, specifically a new IT SAN storage area network for host. Resolution 002-2022, approval of amendments to deposit and forfeiture schedules. Resolution 003-2022, approval of a letter of credit reduction for the Glen at Muskego Lakes. Resolution 004-2022, approval of reduction of cash deposit for Delet Investments LLC, Resolution 006-2022, determination of compensation for personnel called to active duty. Yep, that comes in.
Move to approve and gross.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Moving into new business, Resolution 005-2022, establishing traffic regulations, yield sign at Gold Drive.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, discussion. This was brought to Public Works and Safety Committee last meeting. If you go in your packet, it has kind of a drawing of where this is, if I can find it. Yeah.
I've cruised up that area a couple of times. I don't find a need for additional signage at all.
Does the committee want to share with us their wisdom and?
Well, and before they do, the question I would have is why a yield versus a stop if we're trying to control something, so.
Alderman Inkler, enlighten
All right,
us.
yeah. In our Public Works and Safety Committee discussion about this, it was a little unclear as to what the real potential was. I was for it. I asked for it to be yield instead of stops so that there wouldn't be cars stopping and starting right in front of a house there, in part. Also, having gone down and looked it over again one more time myself, I'm not all enthusiastic about even putting the yield sign there. But I thought the council should discuss, because of the nature of the question and how often we would add signages to neighborhoods that are relatively quiet, have no record of incident, and so forth. So if I was to add anything, I would say for a yield, but I'm not enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, we kind of moved that forward just to have a discussion at council. I don't know if there's a need for a sign. I've never been a fan of putting extra signs up, especially in a residential area. But it was brought up and wanted to be discussed, so we thought it would be a good idea for everybody to have a say or a discussion on it. So, like John said, it did start out as a stop sign. I think you had somebody show up that was pretty, that brought the concern to you, right? That's.
The only thing I would say in light of safety is if you're going south on Gold and the west leg there, if somebody is coming out of that west leg and thinks they have a right of way, but people coming south, proceeding that would head towards the other leg of where it divides there, typical driving rules say you're to yield to the person on the right. It makes it a little awkward there, to say the least. So if there was any kind of traffic control sign there, in the event there was an incident, it would give the officers more power to issue a citation. Being that it's a fixed neighborhood, has not had any real big changes down there in years, there's no room for further development and so forth, I really question why we would even consider it in that light.
And I think one of the concerns that was brought up too by the gentleman that spoke is all three roads have the same name and nobody.
Yeah, they're all named Gold Drive there.
Right, so all three.
A Y in the
fingers
road
have-
and it's still, both branches are still called Gold.
You know, but I just don't know if there's any need for any traffic signs there at all, because it is a residential, it's not heavily traveled, it's, leading down, dead-end streets, and the people that are usually down there are the residents that live there, so it's not a through street or anything.
Very used to it. And when I went back down there and drove through it again one more time, it is pretty open. Visibility is not a big problem, is my opinion, in that neighborhood.
This road is one step up from a footpath. You can't help but drive the way you're supposed to when you
Right.
come down there.
And I don't know how big of a problem it is because I don't live there. The gentleman also brought up that people have driven down the street thinking there's lake access with their boats. I don't know. If you're towing a boat and trailer, you're not going to be going that fast on that street anyhow.
Probably happens on a lot of streets around the lake.
Right.
Well, I found that past experience here being on the council for a while now, probably like Eileen, that we try not to put signs up all over the city, right?
Yeah.
So, I think Public Works probably shouldn't even shot this up to us. But I could be wrong. Or I think they could have made a decision at that point and recommended something for us if we should do it or not. I don't really see a recommendation. A yield sign is a yield sign. I mean,
That's why I'm reluctant to say more for it at this time, but in light of what the discussion was at that meeting, seemed somewhat appropriate to say maybe we should have a discussion, but.
If it helps your decision any, the one person that has brought this forward is moving.
My thought would be at an uncontrolled intersection, you're yielding anyway, so we're putting a sign out to sort of dictate what people should
is
be
that
doing
because there's no
anyway,
sign
so-
there?
That's why they're
I think it's
moving.
something about his alderman.
I'm just kidding.
No.
I don't know. I think we should shelve this, and if there's any more interest, we'll let the residents bring it back up, and we'll hear what they have to say.
So someone could either make a motion to table this, which would just leave it sitting out there, which if it ever got forward by somebody else, then you don't have to bring it through committee, it could just come back again, or you could just kill it altogether by bringing it forward for a vote and voting nay.
On this discussion, I'd like to see it killed.
Yeah, I agree. I think
Let's call the question.
Yeah.
there would have been people here if there was a
Call the
lot of
question, or
concern,
should I just ask to vote?
or we'll find out.
Let's vote on
Okay.
this.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No.
No, you want?
No, you don't want.
What's that?
No, we don't want a yes on
Oh,
this.
I should say aye. Say no. Okay, sorry.
All those in favor say aye. All those against say nay.
Nay.
Nays have it. This resolution is defeated. Thank you.
I thought,
Thank you.
Review of committee reports. In front of you, you have the Public Works and Safety Committee from September 21st for your review. First reading of ordinances, second reading if rules are waived. Ordinance number 1468, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Muskego BP1 and BP3 to plan development or PD. Any further information that you would like brought forward before the second reading? Hearing none. Voucher approval.
Motion to approve utility vouchers in the amount of $394,895.21.
Second.
Discussion.
That one's
All
wrong,
those in
too.
favor say aye.
Aye.
That one's,
Wait,
it's
hold it.
394. Did you say 895 or 985?
895.
Okay, our agenda says 985.
But the
yeah.
motion is for the correct amount, so
Yeah,
that should
that's
be fine.
fine. That's
Okay.
fine.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Motion to approve tax vouchers in the amount of $76,821.57.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? That passes.
Motion to approve general fund vouchers in the amount of $348,079.01.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Motion to approve wire transfers for payroll transmittals in the amount of $380,336.16.
Second.
Just to say that one's wrong on here.
On the agenda, that was
different.
wrong.
Yeah, that was
yeah,
right.
I thought
You're
that was,
right,
This is
it's
right for
wrong.
The
Yeah.
motion is correct, the agenda is wrong.
I figured he was reading it off a list. so-
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. City officials' reports, we have none. Communications and miscellaneous business as authorized by law. Is there any updates from any of the liaisons? I can give you, I did receive this week a request from the senior taxi for their $15,000 allotment for the year. That was part of the budget process. So that will be issued to them. Any other updates? Hearing none. Any future agenda items needed? Motion to adjourn would be in order.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 6:34.